Hey, taking a break from Raging Against the Machine to bring you this video on life's instruction manual. So it's maybe like a truism or just an expression that I've heard along the way, that there is no instruction manual for life, and I'm here to tell you that there actually is. It's just, most people don't take the time to learn about it or to read it or to learn how to read it. Because if you're going to read a metaphorical, metaphysical, mental, emotional, physical, instruction manual on how to operate this machine within this world, then you first have to learn how to read in that metaphorical, figurative way. But that instruction manual is emotional, sensational, what Jung calls imaginal, not imaginary, but of the the plane of imagination. Just like there's a plane of the mental, conceptual. So reading this instruction manual means reading, feeling, examining your emotions and the physical sensations that you're feeling. So when there's a lot of frustration, that lets you know you're in territory that requires your presence and requires you to mature and to grow. It's challenging to face our frustrations, but that doesn't mean. The way that I heard this is that usually when you're in, negative emotional or mental states, that lets you know that you're not in the right place, and that's kind of true. But it's also, where we're challenged and where we feel frustration is also where we're kind of on the right track in terms of growth, maturation, and evolution. So it's not like, avoid negative feelings and go towards all the happy, feel-good feelings. Part of reading part of reading life's instruction manual is learning how to navigate your emotions, which is to say not avoiding them, feeling them fully. As Joseph Campbell, the author of The Hero with a Thousand Faces, once said, it is, it's like bliss is feeling your emotions fully. Every emotion fully felt is bliss. And so if you think about it, if you feel sadness, if you feel frustration, if you feel anger, a lot of that ties into my next point, which is what is it that you're feeling reactively? Or what is it, when you feel an emotion, do you feel it fully or do you resist feeling it? Because we're not supposed to feel angry or feel negative emotions in general. So feeling it fully, feeling it, any emotion without resistance to it, without I should or shouldn't feel this way, is what allows us to feel fully alive, fully enmeshed, and on the right track. That's when you're really in tune with life and with your your individual instruction manual, because what you feel is going to be different from what I feel, or more accurately, how I react to certain stimuli, certain external situations or experiences, is what helps to define me. It helps to reveal my character. And so what pisses you off may be very easily dealt with by me. I can be very patient with it. And what, like, things that you shrug off may irk me very deeply. Just a very quick example of that is, like, my dad is very quick to let go of things and move on. It's like very intuitively forgive and let go, and, you know, not sweat the small things. I'm all about, like, the minutia and the detail, and it helps me, but it also hinders me. And so there is no part of life that is completely unhindered. And there is no part of life, on the flip side, that is complete and utter bullshit, or that is, you know, frustrating and without a silver lining. Let's put it that way. And so my next point had to do with what we feel and what we feel reactively, habitually, and this has a lot to do with the instruction manual, that when we're going through something, good or bad, negative or positive, comfortable or uncomfortable, what emotions do we use reactively or proactively as a filter for our experience? So Victor likes painting. Let's put it that way. Some of my art. That one's not mine. Azuna, at Azuna Arts. And this is kind of funny. So there's a lot of frustration that comes up when I'm painting. And usually I resist feeling frustration because it makes me angry. I think negative, quote unquote, negative thoughts. I think uncomfortable thoughts. And the funny part of this is that there was a study done a while back. It was an open brain, like, research. So they just, like, open up your head, and there's like I think there's like different stimuli for, there are different, like, nodes placed on the brain to stimulate, you know, different parts of it. And, you know, so, like, they stimulate one part of the brain, and it's pain or discomfort or pleasure or joy, and all those different, you know, minute different, like, specific ways that they can play out. Like, pleasure can be sexual pleasure, can be the pleasure in seeing someone else succeed and seeing someone else fail, and seeing you know, the satisfying content, seeing something finished. So at one point in the study, they allow the patient and so what they discovered as they went along with the experiment, with the research, was that when given free rein to stimulate any part of the body, any part of the brain, the one that people found, and just, like, once they found it, they were like, oh yeah, like, let me keep getting hits of that, was the part of the brain that processes or deals with frustration, like, kind of like mild frustration. So, I mean, like, just, yeah, I mean, that just opened up a huge can of worms for me, personally, in just thinking about, like, anything that is mildly frustrating. And even if we're not super in tune with what emotions are what and what they feel, where they register, there's something that I've done a lot of research on personally, just out of necessity, honestly. And part of that research has included social media and how social media affects us. And one of the biggest things that goes into researching social media is coming across this little bit of information that, I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of that mild frustration, if not, that triggering, um, that that social media capitalizes on, is that same part of the brain. And more to the point, one of the biggest things that social media puts, like different outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, the other one, TikTok, let's say, I was going to say Tumblr, old guy. But one of the biggest things that they put money and research into is getting you online and keeping you coming back. It's just like getting you online, getting you to go onto the app, keeping you on the app, and not just keeping you on the app, but keeping you on the app for seconds longer at a time, which goes into like opens up a whole other branch and can of worms about addiction research. But for now, we can just stick to this little bit about how it's not like keeping us on social media all day long. It's really just 1 second longer, just 1 second longer, just 1 second longer, incrementally, and how that, like any drug, we tend to develop a tolerance toward it. And so, bringing it back full circle to the second point was that it's only when we learn specifically about us, about our individual avatar, it's only when we inquire about or into how we came to prefer, knowingly or unknowingly, certain emotions, and get into the habit of filtering our experience through certain emotions. So if you think of emotions as like a filter, like if there's a red filter and a blue filter and things like that, if you think about emotions as a filter, usually when we think about them in the mainstream, when we think about emotions, it's about how something else provoked a certain emotion within us. And there's a lot of talk about like you can't make anyone feel anything, or no one can make you feel anything, and that's problematic at best. People can piss you off, but once you get pissed off, what then do you do? So do you, like, does that trigger hook you and pull you? Like, do you go running with the anger, with the frustration, with the sadness or depression or low self-esteem? Or do you realize, like, oh shit, there's this thing that just triggered me, and now, because I've habitually, unknowingly learned to process this kind of thing with this kind of emotion, well, fuck, now I have to like do the work of getting myself out of that loop and learning a better way to proactively manage myself in these situations. And that's where the work is. When people talk about like, oh, they're doing the internal work, the emotional work, the spiritual work, a lot of that just comes down to like, okay, what is it that pisses you off? What is it that gets you down? What is it that gets you up? And does that serve you or does that hinder you? One of the biggest examples I can think of is traffic. Usually for me personally, when I was in traffic years ago, I would have road rage, right? There's this thing that I can't control. And I'm trying to get to some place. So there's all this pressure on me. Or there was a lot of pressure that I was kind of putting on myself, to get through this obstacle, this herd, onto where I'm, supposed to be, where someone expects me to be, where I've agreed with someone else to rendezvous. And if I don't get there on time, or at least, not super late, well, then that's going to say something that's going to like help or hinder my social credit, which is a whole other thing. Because like, I need to like get into that. So social credit is like, if you've ever heard of like the social dominance hierarchy or a social hierarchy in general, part of what feeds into your place into the hierarchy is social credit. How trustworthy or untrustworthy, you are. And that's just one very small part of it, but it's part of the foundation. It's very important how trustworthy or untrustworthy you come across. And like if you think of like dating, this is especially where it comes in. Is like if you come across suave or smooth, you've had the experiences in life to help you set up those emotional filters, mental filters, physical filters, the way you carry yourself, so that you come across that way. Even if you're on the inside, you're like a bag of insecurities, that's the way you come across. And likewise, if you come across as a creep, or if you're not great, if you have like social anxiety, or if you're not great at reading social cues, or if you read the social cue and then like just ignore it because that's one of the filters that you learned, that diminishes your social credit and your social standing. So a big part of the human experience has to do with learning why it is that you are so lovable, why you are worth loving, and really experimenting with those aspects of yourself, as well as revealing and dealing with the, let's say, less desirable aspects of yourself, your shadow, and other things. But like I was saying earlier, like the way in which the emotions that you use to filter experience can be examined and can be changed, or can be strengthened if you found something that's really working for you. So when it comes to an instruction manual and learning about yourself and learning to navigate the world around you, your childhood plays a big part of that, but it's not the end-all be-all. And that's kind of the glimmer of hope that neuroplasticity brings us, is that, like, on the one hand, we may have learned to react and navigate the world in a certain way that may have actually been detrimental to us, but it's something that we knowingly or unknowingly practice. And so we don't have to be a victim to our habits. And it is grueling work to change your habits. It's like trying to change the direction of a ship. It's like if your essence is the tugboat, your ship is the habits that you've developed up until now. And so part of awakening spiritually is just that, is being that tugboat and being like, okay, we need to like course correct. And I think a big part of that, like probably the most important part of that, is how the smallest action in the present moment leads to the greatest byproduct, result down the line. So like the most frustrating part of doing this mental, emotional, spiritual, we can even say physical work, is it's fucking hard in the moment to be like, well, I'm used to doing things this way, but I know that's not going to work, and it's not helping me, or it's feeding toxicity, and so like you have to choose differently. And so one of the biggest emotions that I learned early on is anger and resistance to anger, and how resistance to anger just compounds anger, creates more of it. And so if I was used to reacting in a volatile way out of anger, one of the biggest transition points that I remember was being in that emotional state and be like, okay, instead of reacting out of anger, I'm just going to do fucking nothing. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to just like start breathing and hope that that helps me get out of the anger, or at least diminishes you know, the impact of the anger on the things and people around me. And in a way, that's kind of like, it's one of the biggest payoffs of doing this style of work, is that the people around you suffer less, which is good, and blah 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 or whatever. It's good. It's a good thing. But a bigger part of life, and speaking on habits and how those help you create momentum to create a better life and a better you, a big part of that is maintaining, and cultivating, keeping relationships, connections to the people and the world around you. One of the biggest parts of spirituality is connection to yourself, to the people and the world around you, and not burning bridges. Let's put it that way. So navigating emotions isn't like there are these emotions out there and we have to like weave our way through them and avoid some and blah blah blah. But like there's also an aspect of that that's like, okay, what emotion can I practice to process this moment? And so there's people who get kind of turned off or turned away, put off by, fake it till you make it. And that's not necessarily a more accurate way to convey that same emotion. Isn't fake it till you make it. It's explore. It's play around with. So like, speaking of spirituality and spiritual teachers, I think one of the quotes that I heard along the way was like, become as children. And when you think of children, or even let's say like dogs or puppies or whatever, this is something I noticed earlier today with my dog, was like how there's this primal urge to play and explore and sniff around and see what there is. It's constantly new, and it's the same for children. And we were children at one point, and it's our job, I feel, that to become as children again, which means things are constantly new. When someone who we like or don't like comes into the room, we tend to fill the space with our memory, with our experiences so far with this person. But if we hold a space to be like, okay, the thoughts and memories and experiences with this person are coming up, for better or worse, can I clear a little bit of that space mentally, emotionally, and allow who they are now and who I am now to fill that space? And when we start doing that is when we allow the space for healing to take place. And honestly, a lot of healing has to do with just being in the moment, because when we're being in the moment, we're not being in the traumatic event or the hurtful event, or that we're not revisiting when someone broke up with us or what we could have done different. When we're being in the moment, we're kind of continuing the painting, the artwork that is our life. And if you've ever seen like one of those, they put Bob Ross's videos on YouTube, and there's like it's almost like a live stream of Bob Ross making a painting. And there's this one point where he kind of like makes a big stroke, and it looks nice up until that point. And then he does something that kind of ruins the painting, and someone's like, no, you ruined it. But because he keeps going, the painting turns out, a million times better. And so there are these little moments in our lives where it feels like things are just like shit hit the fan, life is ruined, we'll never recover, etc. But it's constantly returning to the present, letting go of the habit that is negatively interpreting the present moment, assuming it's a past moment happening again, that wheel of karma, returning to the present moment and having a tinge, a little spark of exploring, of playing, kind of playing with the current moment. One of the things that kind of changed the way I play and live was in an improv course where one of my teachers, Rosie Moan, said, how can I fuck with the scene? Right? How can I play with it? How can I kind of like be a mischievous child and play with the current moment? And that helped me to like bring out like that playful side of myself, that like Dennis the Menace side of me. Travieso is what I call him, which means travieso in Spanish. It's like mischievous kid or something. But then like the next level, another teacher, Jimmy Pennington, was like, when you do this, when you're playing in front of a crowd, you are free. The way he said it was like you're almost invited, you're encouraged to be your least fuckable self. And when we talk about using this instruction manual in life to navigate it, to have a good time while we're here, a big part of that has to do with social desirability and that social hierarchy. And we can get bogged down in trying to be socially desirable, what we think other people want us to be, or what we think other people think is cool. And getting away from that, I mean, it's one thing to be like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have the results that brings. But then that keeps me in this kind of struggle with what I don't want. So fixating on what I want to avoid keeps what I want to avoid alive. And so it helps to have this like, okay, instead of avoiding this, I'm going to say, I don't want this. I don't like it. So I'm going to focus on this thing over here. And this thing over here is being your least fuckable self. Maybe not purposely, maybe not to an extreme, but being okay with, the people around you not wanting to fuck you. Not being like, yeah. We don't have to, come across as mad fuckable. We can bring that filter down one and, say the dumb shit, say the stupid shit, take risks, And yeah, more to the point, just not have to focus so heavily on coming across as the right thing or person in the moment, and just allowing ourselves to relax a bit. Healing takes place in those moments where our body and our mind are like, okay, we can relax now. That's why so many people smoke weed and drink and medicate, is to bring in that sense of like, okay, things aren't falling apart at the moment, and I can just be. That's what meditation is just being. And it's like an investment in yourself that pays off a lot later on down the road, in the months, weeks, years to come. Part of trauma is like, we're dying, and we're dying right now. Therefore, resort to extreme action. And learning to relax and learning to be, more of like a well-adjusted person has to do with being okay with yourself and with who you are. Part of that has to do with not worrying about being so goddamn fuckable all the time, so goddamn desirable all the time, so right, allowing yourself to be wrong, to make mistakes. And I'll leave you with this. One of the turning points that, I learned a lot in the Marines, but one of the greatest things I learned, apart from, just really quickly, you don't have to like each other, but you do have to get along. You don't have to like each other, but you will get along. That like somebody said that to me, Corporal Saravia, thank you. Just kind of like said that after, yelling at us for some shit that we were doing. And that just stuck out. It was like my instruction manual, my internal GPS was like, hold on to this. This is very important. So I internalized that. It's like, oh fuck, you don't have to like your experience as a human, but you do have to kind of like get along with it. Yeah. Fuck, what was the other thing? But yeah, the other lesson that I learned in the Marines was, fuck, I think I lost that. I'm gonna have to watch this video and remember. I could not remember what that lesson was that I learned in the Marines. So I'm gonna have to sacrifice that one for the one that I did remember, and come back in another video with that other one, because it's something that I live with and use to this day. I just can't remember what it is. It's embodied knowledge that we do without thinking, that we apply without thinking, that we do knowledge good. So I'll save it for another video, but hopefully this helps you to learn the good way to be, learn to be good at life. But something that does come to mind is that that I learned in the Marines, within the service, was that if you got a big mess in front of you, start with what's in front of you and don't get bogged down by what's left. Just focus on what's in front of you, and lose yourself in that. And before you know it, hours will have passed and you will have cleared a big chunk, if not finished, the work that you had to do. So yeah, one foot in front of the other. And when it comes to processing unprocessed emotional content, and just fucking breathe and observe, and you'll learn what emotions you habitually use, which work and which could stand to be replaced. Yep. Okay, I hope this helps. Let me know what you think, how this is working for you, how life is going for you, and if there's anything that you would like me to hit on. I've been doing this for going on like 16, like 5 years now, of like really full-time diving into the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual aspects of life in depth. So, and spiritual healing. So yeah, if you have any questions, anything from the spiritual side that I can go into detail on, anything that's troubling you. If you have anything that's troubling you, let me know. And book a session. I am victorE.com/book an appointment. All one word. Yeah. Peace.